What's up, and welcome to the single player experience. I'm your host, Sebastion, and in this episode, I'm talking about Need for Speed Unbound. I'll be honest with you, when it was announced that there was another Need for Speed game coming out, I couldn't help but roll my eyes. I used to be a fan of the series. Back in the day, I used to play the hell out of Need for Speed Underground and Most Wanted. But that was a long time ago, though, and to be honest, Need for Speed over the years felt like it was getting left in the dust by other racers out there. But then I saw the trailer, and the anime like touches in the art style made me intrigued. The new art style kind of gave me a glimpse of hope that they were trying something different and fresh with this latest Need for Speed Unbound game. So, did the changes provide the boost needed for this game franchise to catch up with the likes of Forza and Gran Turismo? Is Need for Speed Unbound a good single player experience? Find out right after the intro. DJ, start the beat, man. This is the Single Player Experience, the podcast that helps single player gamers manage their video game backlog. I'm your host, Sebastion Malden, and my main quest is to help you manage your ever-growing video game backlog by letting you know which single player games are worth your time and money so that you can have the best single player experience. Now, without further ado, let's start the show. DJ, cut the beat. Let's talk about the gameplay for Need for Speed Unbound. The driving itself is pretty good. In a game centered around cars, it's important to nail the feeling of each individual car. Thankfully, Unbound handles that aspect very well. An aspect that did surprise me about the game is how challenging the racing is. To get first place and remain there, you have to be on your A game. One mistake, just one mistake, can be the difference between first place and fourth place and seventh place. The game also has a boost/gauge meter. You can raise this meter by drifting, near misses with pedestrian cars, or driving close to your opponents. It's important and vital for your success to manage the boost meter. This game features tight races, so a well-timed boost can be the difference in your overall placement. Let's talk about some of Need for Speed Unbound's features. This Need for Speed game features a day and night cycle game mechanic. You start off the day with zero heat from the cops. As you do races and other illegal activities, your heat meter builds up. As your heat rises, the police ramp up their drive to take you down. If they succeed, you lose all the money that you've earned that day. The night presents its own sort of challenges and different aspects for the players. The events that you can participate in are slightly different at night. Your heat carries over into the night, so you have to be careful about which night activities you do and avoid the cops. If you manage to get back to your safe house, you and all the money that you've earned are safe. Each morning, your heat resets, so you don't really have to worry about yesterday's heat carrying over to the next day. One of the biggest pros of Need for Speed Unbound is the game's police chases. This really mixes things up and feels like a high-speed chase game of tag. This is a fun way that the game mixes things up, but it does feel like it has a missed opportunity here, that the map in the game doesn't offer like obstacles and provide opportunities to execute dynamic takedowns to lose the cops. Basically, you just have to drive around and be skillful while doing such, and eventually the cops will make a mistake and you can just drive away. So that's why I feel like it's a missed opportunity that the game doesn't present more dynamic ways for you to elude the cops. I also enjoy that the game gives you restarts so that you can restart races even when you mess up. I'll be honest, I'm not Speed Racer or Ricky Bobby when it comes to racing games, so it's nice that I can restart and try again when a race turns sour for me. Depending on the difficulty that you choose, you only get a certain amount of restarts though, so the lower the difficulty, the higher number of restarts, so keep that in mind. Let's talk about Need for Speed Unbound's story. Let me be real here. The narrative leaves a lot to be desired, but it's serviceable. It's not going to win any awards, and the performances are just meh, but the story is fleshed out enough for it to be entertaining. Even though the narrative kind of gave me vibes of a low-budget Fast and Furious movie, I did want to see how the ending would come about. I wanted to see this thing all the way through, so kudos for them for making a engaging narrative. Let's talk about some of the negative aspects of the game. One of the major flaws of Need for Speed Unbound is the game's environments. The problem isn't that the scenery looks bad. No, the problem is that the scenery operates in a very unrealistic manner in this game. When you drive into things like bushes, poles, and traffic signs, they just simply disappear as opposed to slow you down or interacting with a car in a very believable or realistic way. I get that this was probably done to make the game as fun as possible, but that aspect takes you out of the game a bit. It kind of breaks immersion there. Another negative aspect of the game is the gambling system. Need for Speed Unbound requires you to buy into races, and the better you do in those races, the higher your payout is. The buy ins can be insanely expensive and unfortunately don't really pay well. It seems like a system that wasn't really well thought out and very unfriendly to players in general. So, should you play Need for Speed Unbound? If you're a fan of racing games, then yes, you should definitely check this game out. The game's art style and vibe make it feel like a fresh entry into the racing genre. While it's not quite at the level of Gran Turismo or Forza Horizon games, this is still a massive step forward for the Need for Speed franchise. While this game isn't going to blow anyone away and isn't going to be a legitimate Game of the Year contender, this is a game worth checking out. In this show, we practice the 10 games backlog rule. In this practice, you log down 10 games. Those games are going to be your video game backlog. To be as productive as you possibly can be, we recommend that you only play 3 games at one time. One single player narrative game, one game that's going to be your chill and relax game, and another game that's going to be your palate cleanser game, which is a game that you play when you're not in the mood for your other narrative games. When you complete or get tired of one game, it leaves the backlog list. Then you decide which new game is added to the list, and which game on the list advances to your active 3 games. Should Need for Speed Unbound be in your video game backlog? I think this is a tricky question because I don't think this game is for everyone. If you're a fan of racing games though, or if you like arcade racers, then I would definitely say check this game out. But if you're not a fan of the genre, I don't think this game is going to change your mind, and I feel like it'll be a waste of time because the story is not engaging enough to keep you wanting to play more, and everything else in the game is not going to entice you to just fall in love with this genre. While the new art style is intriguing, and it was the key thing that got me in because I'm a fan of anime, I don't think that aspect is going to appeal to the masses. So, if you're a fan of racing games, this definitely belongs in your video game backlog. If not, then no, stay away from this game. It's not quite worth your time, and there are other games that you can be playing and enjoying a lot more. So, that is the game recommendation of the week that you should consider adding to your backlog list. If you want me or my community of gamers to give you feedback on your backlog list, then join us in the Single Player Experience Discord server. Once you're in, feel free to share your video game backlog list, or talk about good single player game experiences that you've had lately. The link to join the free Single Player Experience Discord server is in the show notes. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Peace.